Hi, Victoria.
Hi.
Uh, I guess I'll start again. Hello, can you tell me your name, where you grew up, and what you create?
Yes. Hi. My name is Victoria Wanjuhi. I grew up in Kenya, uh, and London. What do I create? I create experimental work. So I use textile to experiment with,
Hmm,
if
great.
that makes sense.
Yes. Were textiles a source of interest for you when you were growing up, or how did your interest in textiles begin?
uh, I wouldn't say it was necessarily the textile part because I didn't understand there was a thing such as textiles. Even if we were wearing it every day, I was more focused on the fashion side. So I was looking at a garment, not for looking at the detail about the textile, but the fashion side of things. So I started experimenting or playing around and deconstructing denim. But unconsciously, I guess I was actually attracted to the textile part of the denim design.
Hmm.
So now I know I was interested in textiles, but at that time I didn't know that I was.
And was that in
Yeah.
London or Kenya where you started
That
to?
was in Kenya, Nairobi. I was actually in boarding school,
Hmm.
and when so the boarding school was a boarding school and a day scholar where you could go home. So I did both, and I would go home and just take my clothes or go to it's called Gekumba.
Hmm.
It's I probably butchered the pronunciation, to be honest, but it's a secondhand market in Kenya, and I would buy the denim and deconstruct and cut up and just simple childish designs and back to school, and we had like events where I would have my friends do little fashion shows wearing them. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Do you know where uh, the used clothing was sourced? Was it coming from overseas or was it
Yes.
okay?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
And how were the fabrics or textiles sorted? Were they just like in big piles, or was there like a denim section? And
Yes. From what I remember growing up, it was a pile of like a mountain of clothes where you would have to go in and dig in.
Mhm.
But right now, I've seen videos, and when I was back in Kenya, I saw that now the people who work in the market are more, I don't know if advanced is the right word,
Right.
but they have it in hangers and they have it sorted. It's
Uh-huh.
becoming like an actual true industry. Uh,
Hmm.
because I believe it's a whole organization.
Okay, that's really interesting. And yeah, but I can imagine as a child just seeing the mountain of fabrics and the kind of the joy of finding things
Yeah,
and the hunt for things was probably half of the, the enjoyment.
experience. Yeah, it was quite. It's like a whole day event. So it's not something you're like, oh, I'm gonna go there for 2 hours. No, it was like, okay, so we're going in, dig in, because you don't know what each vendor has. You have to find out. You have to go dig in and find out.
It
Yeah.
makes me think to my childhood. My mom used to collect textiles, and she used to bring me along, oftentimes dragging me when I didn't want to be there. But she'd be like, "You check under here," or she sent me on special missions to get into places that she couldn't see or that were too low or
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
anyhow, my next question is, do you think there's a difference in attitudes towards the reuse of materials in everyday life between people in Kenya, the UK, and the United States?
Definitely. Well, okay, that was very short. I would say UK and US, I'll put them together because it's the Western world. And then I'd say Kenya. So Kenya and UK and US. Kenya, so growing up, even now, there's this sense of there's a use for every material in your everyday life. So so if, let's say I go and buy ice cream, in the container, I eat the ice cream, I finish it. Like the idea of throwing the container in the trash bin has been, it's not something we do necessarily. Even like yesterday, I was visiting my aunt, and when I was leaving, she was giving me food, and she would put it in a container of an ice cream container. So one finds use of everyday objects. And coming to the US, I guess us as immigrants, we bring that culture here. I'm not very familiar with an American household. So I can't really speak about the household part, but from what I see, I definitely think there's a difference in how we look at materials, or yeah, if that makes sense.
So that everything has a few lives. It's not thought of as something you use once, but pretty much like you're thinking about after the initial use, kind of what the secondary use would be. And yeah, I guess from my experience in the US, people think about objects more as disposable, like containers. They're meant for a singular purpose, and then once that purpose has been fulfilled, then they're disposed of. Right.
This is a hard question. Because I think from my eyes, I'm looking through an immigrant eyes. So I think I have to come back to that question.
Sure. And when did you move from Kenya to the UK and then from the UK to the US?
So I was maybe about 12 or so when I moved to the UK, but it was back and forth between UK and Kenya. Actually, really from 7 years old, back and forth. And then we moved officially to the US 10 years ago in 2008. Yeah.
And what city did you move to in the US?
So we moved to Atlanta, not for any special reason. Usually, I don't want to speak, I'm not speaking here for all immigrants, but it's usually a common thing that happens, a common pattern where you move where you know someone. So we moved to Atlanta because my aunt was here.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. My next question is about where you went to college and what you studied in college.
I went to, in the United States, I went to SCAD Atlanta, and I studied fashion design.
And when did you start using reclaimed materials in in either your fashion or your artwork?
So it started like the story I was telling before, where I was cutting up denim. Whether that was reusing, that's the question actually. Probably that wasn't reusing, that was refashioning my clothes, I guess. Truly reusing was when I started my grad classes. Grad school. that's when I had the experience of the world and I saw the problems and yeah, that's when I started.
And I guess going back a little bit, what did you do after you graduated from SCAD?
I worked in the fashion industry. I was lucky enough to find a job in New York. So I worked for a company there first of all, I started as an intern, and then I was hired full time as an assistant designer. And I worked in the menswear section. And then I moved back to Atlanta and I worked for a kids company here as an assistant designer again. Yeah.
And what was your experience working in the fashion industry, both in Atlanta and was it New York where the other?
New York. Okay. Yeah. It was good. It was a good experience in general. The work was not what I was expecting as a student. You know, in school, you're thinking you're going to the industry and you're going to make this, like you're going to use your creative juices, where you're creating one-of-a-kind pieces or something like that. But reality is that when you start working for companies, you're creating a sellable product that has been reviewed by them to say, yeah, this is our customer and this is what they want. So you have to design according to a certain kind of box. So the experience wasn't bad, but it wasn't fulfilling because now the time me graduating and working in the industry was basically just 4 years. So I don't have like 10, 15 years of experience.
Right.
So it wasn't fulfilling. So I wanted to create pieces that I felt that, not pieces, but I wanted to be in a creative environment where I felt like I was actually doing something rather than just existing.
That makes sense. And then what prompted you to go back to graduate school? Was it to kind of fulfill this creative drive and kind of continue the work that you had started?
Yeah, I felt like I reached a dead end, and I felt like, okay, so I can't go this way, I can't go that way. I need like a restart button in a way. And also, while I was working for the company I was working on, I was doing research on sustainability. So I was finding out more information about this whole other industry that I didn't know about. And being in the company that I was in, one of my responsibilities was to find errors in garments. And so I started connecting these dots where, okay, so let's say we get samples coming from the factories where the sleeve is backwards, let's say. What do they do with that garment? Do they throw it out? Because sometimes you'd find if you didn't catch it or someone didn't call it out, they might 5,000 or whatever amount.
Right.
And all of those things, where they're going to go. So I started connecting dots between. So I remember all these clothes in Kenya, the secondhand clothes, and then I'm connecting Goodwill and thrift stores, and seeing in the company where we like the rack you have back there, like having a bunch of garments, and this is season, like every season. And it's not just one company, it's like it's a whole industry. Right. So I started connecting all these things, and I was like, this is an area I would like to focus, like put some energy in and find out. And
Mm-hmm.
so it encouraged me to pursue school. And
Mm-hmm.
also at the same time, my mom
Mm.
was like, when is grad school coming? Because just having an undergrad doesn't, you didn't stop there, like you need to get a master's. So
I
at the
should
same
I,
time, it was
mhm. I should have asked you about your family and their influence on you and your career and your studies.
mm, very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had, I think, okay, so I in primary, secondary, which is middle school and high school,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I wasn't, one of those students where I'm like doing math homework, doing my assignments when they're due. I was actually quite I wasn't very focused in school. So I
Mm-hmm.
think also my family, when they saw I had an interest
Right.
in something,
Mm-hmm.
they encouraged it. Because
Wanted to
for a
encourage.
long time, I just, I didn't have a place that I
Mm-hmm.
felt. So I actually just loved music growing up,
Mm.
but I didn't play an instrument or anything like that. But so when they saw I had an interest in art, they were like, "This is it." So they did definitely supported me.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's great. And then what did your mom and dad do? And do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have a brother, one brother. So my father is not present in my life.
Mm.
So it's my mom who's my mother and my father.
Mm.
She was a teacher when I was much younger, and now she's a satisfied nurse.
Mm.
Yeah, she's in now. Yeah,
And you're
I know my pronunciation. I hope, yeah.
no. I can understand you fine. And yeah, sounds like
Okay.
your your mom is your biggest supporter and also the person
Yes.
that's pushing you to push yourself.
Yes. Like even me now that I'm at home, she tries to find ways to be a part of my work. So
Mm.
she's asking me every other day, like, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to do something? So I do yarn paintings where I take, okay, I'm not gonna go deep on that, but I do
No,
yarn
yeah, please
paintings.
please tell us about your yarn paintings.
Yeah, so I take when I was in school,
Mm-hmm.
I was taking knitting class,
Mm-hmm.
and in the knitting class, the lab, you have like a bunch of knitting machines. And one day, I guess randomly, just like probably at 12 p.m. or something, I'm walking out and I noticed the trash bin. It's next to the door. And I notice it and I see a bunch of yarns in the trash bin. And there's something cringy about it, about seeing material, especially because I know it's a class where the material wasn't used, it wasn't worn or something like that, it was just being tested on the machine.
Right.
So there was something cringy about seeing it in the trash bin. So I thought, oh, I wonder if I could start collecting this. I didn't have an idea of what I was using it for, but
Right.
I asked the professor, I asked the chair of the department, Kiowa,
Mm-hmm.
and asked her, could I put a trash bag on top of the other trash bag, like pin it on the wall with a sign asking the students instead to throw it in that bag.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it started. So I wish I had a picture to show. It's very colorful stripes of yarns where I untangle the trash bag and take out the yarns and tie knots and do yarn painting with it. And so yes, so that's like I have a bag right now on the ground here that I collected, and yeah, so that's what I do with to create the yarn paintings. And so my mom was asking me like how she can help me with that project, and we're trying to work out now that I'm not in a school within academics space,
right?
So I don't have access to waste from other students. We're trying to see how I could continue collecting yarns. Yeah. So she actually helps me by going to the thrift stores and buying sweaters. And because I also work with denim, so she also collects denim. And right now she's in Kenya. She's coming back to Kenya. And she called me the other day and was like, oh, there's a woman selling denim here, secondhand denim. Do you want some? I was like, yes, as long as it's 100% cotton. Yeah, so she's definitely a team player.
Yeah, and you've trained her well. I think now she could do your buying. She knows what you like.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll have to send you a photo. Your story about collecting the yarn and making artwork for it. Last year we had at our opening party we had this guy came who had a yarn car. It's basically a vintage like 1970s style car, and he puts Velcro all over it and then does these really intricate motifs on the car. It's insane. Almost like a Tibetan Zen mandala. And I don't know, it must take him like weeks to do it. And he said like every few years the yarn gets faded because he actually uses the car like every day, and so he'll take it all off and put it back on. So maybe I can connect the two of you. It sounds like it's probably a ton of material. I forgot to ask him what he does with all the excess yarn.
Yes. Wait, so this is a whole car, like a
whole car,
one
yeah.
drive. Oh wow! Wow, bravo!
yeah, no, he's the nicest guy too. But I'll send you a photo. It's hard to believe. So I'm going to skip ahead because you started to talk about it a little bit, but just how you organize your materials now that you're out of school. Kind of, do you have like a system kind of for dealing with it? And sometimes do you have more materials than you really can handle or know what to deal with?
So since graduating, which was May, I did an internship in the summer for 3 months. So now I have had, so as an independent maker artist, I've had maybe 3 months after school. I think I'm still processing how I'm going to be as an artist, because in school, when I was working in the studio, it was a school setting. You had a limited space, so you really had to be organized. Now, being in my own space and having that freedom, I'm realizing, okay, so I work with denim, I work with wasted yarns, I work with new yarns where I need them, and I work with printmaking. So I'm trying to allow myself to try different things. So I have a section, like they're all organized. Denim together, the yarns are together. Even if the wasted and the new ones, they're still mixed together. So I'm trying to figure that out as I go. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on graduating and getting your degree. Although I'm sure it's probably one of the craziest times in history to be a recent
Yeah.
graduate, and you can really
I'm
sympathize.
actually yes, yes. So of course I'm very all condolences to everyone who's been affected by COVID-19.
Mm,
And this is a very sad time we're all
mhm,
in.
right.
But it's also in a weird way a very important time. So
Mhm,
I'm very honored to have actually graduated in 2020 because for sure I'll forever remember it. And I'll be one of those students where you're like, oh, you graduated in 2020. So it could always be a start of a conversation in the future. And I'll definitely never forget it. Yeah. I
mm.
mean, no one will, but yeah.
No, yeah, but I think you're part of the change and part of the future. So it's talking with people like you that gives me a lot of hope, and I also share your optimism that this is a very tragic time, and but it's also a time where we can really rethink and rebuild things, and so it's also an
Yeah, we
opportunity.
have yeah, we definitely have to do that because what has been going on cannot continue on. I hope it doesn't continue on.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I was going to ask you, you said something before when you were talking about your mom, in that you were telling her that you only wanted things that were all cotton. And I just wanted to dive
Yeah.
into that a little bit more because I know right now the trend really is, especially with a lot of performance fabrics, people want them to stretch or have characteristics that that oftentimes combine synthetic and natural materials. And I wanted to ask you, for your practice, kind of how you view the materials and why you choose to work with only cotton or natural materials, if that's the case.
That's a good question. So first of all, it's a preference. When I touch the denim, I don't like the stretch because the stretch reminds me, not always, but most of the time, of cheap production.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I don't, and also it doesn't last long. So that's where I started preferring 100% cotton, and also being able to use natural dye when in my work. 100 cotton is best than synthetic. There's just something more elegant about using the intended material that was intended for denim
Mm-hmm.
before it became a whole thing of fast fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it looks good. It works better with when I'm doing hand sewing on top of it. If I'm rehanging it on the knitting machine, it works better. So I'm still, there's a whole other topic about denim where I'm still reaching about how much water is being wasted in the dye process that is involved in making denim. And so I'm still working my way and researching.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, I 100% cotton. Yeah.
Mm. Interesting.
That's for the future. You're always learning and always, yeah, just exploring your materials. So I'm looking
Yeah,
forward.
it's probably simpler too. You know what you can expect when you have things that have been blended. It just creates all sorts of other complications, and sometimes, you know, it's even if you don't have a tag, you don't even know what it's made out of, or yeah, I don't know. Just as a consumer, it's something I think about. You know, I do have pieces that I bought when I was in college that are synthetic, and sometimes they do last longer, and they do have certain characteristics. But I do feel like, you know, sometimes you'll have something that's 99% cotton and then 1% spandex or something like that, and you think about that because of that 1%, you know, that item is never going to decompose. You know, it's gonna create a footprint that's much longer and much harder to necessarily untangle. If we use kind of like a metaphor, like maybe, you know, and I didn't ask you, but, you know, your yarns through the sweaters, are you kind of taking a garment and then kind of breaking it down into the yarn that it was made from? And I guess, you know, when you have something that's synthetic, you can't really bring it back into its natural form.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely a topic that I'm very interested in, and I don't want to speak on it because I'm not very knowledgeable about it yet. So, but yes, I agree with you. Yes. Thank you for that.
No, yeah, it's interesting. I'm not an expert too, but I think about it just having worked in the fashion industry, and also, you know.
Oh yeah, you worked in the fashion industry too.
Yeah, probably not at the same time as you, but yeah, I still work. I mean, there are some companies in Portland that I work with, but I run a textile archive that provided inspiration for fashion designers, and so I wasn't necessarily responsible for the production of the goods, but I saw the very beginning of the creative process, and I also saw or noticed a lot of waste, just, you know, just from being close by. And I did an internship at Eileen Fisher when I was in college as well, and so that was a interesting company to kind of to work for, and, you know, spend some time with over the summer. So but you know, as you and I discussed before our call, or before we started recording, you know, there's obviously there are a lot of industries, but especially the fashion industry is really seems like it's poised to change significantly as a result of the reset due to the pandemic. All right, let me get back to the list of questions. Let's see. So yeah, you and I first got into contact with each other about Portland Textile Month, and we were really thrilled to display your knit denim piece as part of Portland Textile Month. And so I wanted just to ask you how that work came about. And yeah, if you could tell us a little bit of the backstory.
Yes, thank you so much. That was when you reached out. I was, you know, when you're not expecting. Basically, because I was in an academic setting, so everything was coming from the school, and then this is one of the first things that happened as a independent maker, as an artist. So I was very thrilled and very honored that you reached out to me, and being a part of Portland Textile Month is, especially now, is definitely very meaningful, and I'm very happy. This is one of my first shows, or group shows, or just being a part of the art industry, especially right now. This piece, knit denim. So a lot of my work, they have like, they inform each other. So I might start, so I start, so I started with one denim that I bought from Zara when I was at Zara. So it's a whole story. So it's like a whole puzzle. So bear with me.
Yeah, sure.
So I was at Zara, and I have this habit of not trying on garments when I'm in the store, especially when I'm in a hurry or I just don't feel like it. It's not that important,
Right.
the gap. So this is when I was still working in the industry, when I was working for the kids company here in Atlanta. So I looked at it. I was like, okay, it's a size, my size. I've never changed sizes, so it's like almost guaranteed
Right.
it's gonna fit me. So I get
Yeah.
home, I'm excited to try it on, but the fit is so wrong. The fit, the denim is so wrong. And actually, I should mention it was $10
Okay.
when I bought it. So I was
Yeah.
very excited because it looked really cool, and I
Yeah.
was like, for $10, yes, for sure. And I think that's part reason also I didn't even try it. So I get home, I try it on, the fit is ill. I'm like, what is this? Because even someone who's smaller than me would not fit. Basically, it's between the waist and the crotch area, it's
Right.
definitely off.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, well, it was $10, it's fine. So I put it aside. After maybe a year or so, when I was going into grad school, I decided I'm going to take denim piece, but I don't know what I'm doing with it, but I'm just going to take it with me. So basically in my studio for like 2 weeks, that was the only material I had that I brought with me. And I was like, I just allowing the whole thing to sink in, not thinking, oh, I'm going to do a project with it. No, it's just because that was one of the reasons why I actually wanted to go back to school, was the whole that it's the fit is wrong. There's a mistake in the pattern making of it, and if this garment did not sell, if I didn't buy it in the store, the whole thing of how it's going to be shipped to maybe a developing or a third world nation, but still it's not going to fit anyone wherever it's going. So basically it was a whole equation, like a thing I wanted to explore. So after a few quarters working, learning about textiles, knitting, jacquard, weaving and other classes, I came back to this denim piece where I was like, okay, so I'm gonna cut it up and just see how it goes. And I was in studio 2, maybe, with Liz, one of the professors. And she was like, she mentions like, I took a knitting class with her. She was the knitting professor. And that was my first class when I started grad school. So she says, because she knows I want to do this whole collage thing of with textiles, she says you could actually rehang the denim on the machine. I'm like, oh really? Oh, yeah, because you have the machine going back and forth. So I thought it would get caught and then I'll damage the machine. But actually she said I could do a stitch on the edge of the denim and rehang it, the threads. So I did that. And so I was able to add on knitting on top of it. And so in a way I was using old material with new material. And so I like this idea of finding use for it. And then, so I did that and I did collage. And at this time I was working with, I was creating swatches. So before that, actually, I was creating swatches with denim. This is one of the pieces I was working with. So I had I had scraps of denim, so I was using I was learning patchworking and mending techniques for this project. So I carried that same concept to this new one, where I wanted some areas hanged on the knitting machine and some areas hand embroidery, and so I did that. And then when you look at the piece, there's an outline of a bodice, a top, half of the top. So this is a flat pattern where fashion designers usually start from. You have a basic pattern of a size 6 or 8 or whatever size it is, and you start from there, and then you build on the garment from there. So knowing this is one of the basic start for designers, I wanted to speak to the designers by placing the garment and outlining the shape of the garment, and kind of showing them, because also I am a designer, showing us that you could, so when you're cutting up a garment, so let's say you're cutting up a sleeve, out of 1 yard fabric, you can cut so much, and then you still have scraps left. So those
there's the pattern, and then there's the stuff outside of the pattern, or the cuts.
Yes, the stuff outside. I like that one. The stuff's outside the pattern, where you could be creative and create create another yard of fabric from it. And so that was the idea of putting the bodice on top of the textile, to show that we could get creative about how we use waste that we are making. Yeah, so that's
really,
how it started.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I helped hang up your piece, so
cool.
It's really interesting hearing this after spending so much time with the physical object. It's kind of hearing the story, your story as well. Really, it makes me appreciate it on a whole different level, because it's a really beautiful piece, just aesthetically, as you were saying, the shapes and the proportion, but also knowing that the genesis was really a garment that you bought that was really unsatisfactory, or that had a lot of issues, and the fact that you turned it into something that's so beautiful. I was going to ask you, if you early on, did you think often about the designer, the person that put that into production? Or, since you are a designer and you've worked at companies, the steps that some may or may not take to make sure that things fit and are just, are made well. And so did you try and imagine like who the person was that designed it, or how they could have gotten the proportions so wrong?
Actually, no, because in fashion, there's no one person. You can't just say, go to the store and be like, this one person is responsible for this error. It's a whole chain of people, where there's miscommunications, there's rush, there is just a whole chaos of things happening. But yeah, no, I definitely, you cannot pinpoint one person.
Right. But it is, I guess, if you look at that one garment, it could represent a lot of things, not even just with the one company, but just as an industry that are how should I say this, out of sync.
Right. Yes.
Interesting. All right, back to your so yeah, I wanted to ask you kind of like so I know you recently graduated and then had your internship this summer, but kind of what are you currently working on, or what's coming up?
What's coming up? So what's coming up? I'm also yet to know. But, uh, it's been, if we're being upfront and honest, it's
Hmm.
been definitely hard.
Hmm.
Uh, the whole transition between from school to now the world, really,
Right.
because in school I feel like you're in a protected shell, and but now in the world you have to actually find that motivation for yourself. So it's been tough because now with everything going on with politics and so many, just like 2 hours ago something happened in Vienna, something happened in Ethiopia. It's like so much is happening in this time, and then we're also in our homes, so we can't even escape like going somewhere else. So it's been hard to get creative,
Hmm.
but I am definitely forcing myself. There's this cool quote where I forget who said it, but basically it goes like an artist should practice uh, making art like athletes practice.
Hmm.
So I definitely took that idea and I forced myself to make work. So I'm doing a lot of collage, painting. I'm trying to experiment with Mayan paintings, seeing what else is there, and if I'm missing something. And also, now I don't have machines like I did have in school. So now I'm trying to understand, okay, I loved this process, but I don't have the machine to create the work anymore. So what else can I create from home? And then also, what can I? So I'm actually in search of finding a knitting machine,
Mm.
and I'm also interested in making prints, printmaking, and
Hmm.
I'm doing my research to finding out how printmakers make from home. So
Hmm.
it's a lot of research, a lot of finding out what I could do for myself at home,
Hmm.
and then I think once I have that settled,
Hmm.
because right now you can, well, I can't be very creative if I don't know how I'm going to make the work, right?
Right.
So because I don't sketch a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, so I have the materials and then I go. But what I can do from home is working with denim. So that's what I've been experimenting with,
Hmm.
is patchworking. I have a commission piece where I'm working on a garment, and so I'm making the textile part of it. Um, and yeah, just taking it one day at a time, I think. Mm.
Yeah, it's a challenging time, and I think in that answer you answered some of my other questions about what it was like being an artist to work during this period. And I guess if people want to get in contact or people want to support you, kind of how can they get in touch?
Definitely my Instagram is a good area to find me. I check it almost every other day. It's Victoria Wanjuhi. So Wanjuhi is spelled Wajohe. Um, that's a good place. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna give my email, but I think
You
is.
have a website too.
Oh yes, I do have a website,
That,
www.wanjohe, but now Wanjohe is spelled different. It's the right spelling, which is WANJUHI .com.
Cool. Yeah, I think we have on the PTM website, we have a link to your website.
Okay.
And yeah, I really encourage people to reach out to you. And yeah, I think especially with the use of machines or materials, I know just having access can be really helpful. So I hope you get connected with some great resources. We have two more questions. And you touched on this a little bit, but is there a project that you've thought through in your head but have not yet executed, kind of? So something that that's really excited you, but you just haven't had time to actually sit down and do.
Yes. Definitely yes. Actually, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it, but yes, I also procrastinate. So it's, and one of the things is we work it out in our head so much.
Right.
People who procrastinate. So I've definitely worked on this project in my head for quite a bit. But yes, for sure, I have worked.
All right, I'm gonna keep my eyes out, and then when maybe get back in touch when I and ask you, is that the project you're alluding to? And I'm a procrastinator too, so I can definitely empathize with that.
Right. It's a real problem.
I think yes. Most people are. All right, last question. It's a rather big one, and I think you already talked about this a little bit in being part of the next generation or the generation that's post-pandemic. But how can we repair the future?
That is a big question. I think one of the ways, because I don't think there's just one answer, like do this and everything is good in the future. The others, basically thinking about others and thinking about how what you're doing, what you're making is affecting others. I feel this is something we as human beings just have it naturally in ourselves to think about others. And so if we get in touch with that side of us and practice it, we definitely will repair some part, or even spark something to start repairing the future, because that is I mean so I wanted to mention this story that I experienced that I saw in Japan when I visited there in December. Mm-hmm. There's this thing about the culture there where when you're in the train, you're quiet because you're considering the people around you, right. Or if there's you're making a queue you're waiting for the train, you make a queue. So you're right. Being considerate of others around you. Right. So this concept is, we people in the West and everywhere else, we should all.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also you wear a mask, or people wore masks before if they were sick, just so that they wouldn't right. make someone else sick. So that's something that has come to really into focus the last few months. But That makes sense. And yeah, I just wanted to say, Victoria, as we wrap up our call, and as you were saying, talking about your participation in Portland Textile Month, I feel so honored to have had you participate and appreciate. You're our only artist who wasn't based in Portland, and I'm so glad that we were able to connect and show your work. And this has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate you sharing your perspective and just being open to this.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to even have someone interested from across the country. So I'm very honored, and I'm definitely taking this in. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of Portland Textile Month.
Yeah. Not at all.
And I'm sorry. Yeah, I was a bit nervous, and yeah, I stumble on my words, and I hope. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I am also very self-conscious about my speaking patterns, and I think you did a great job. And I think people are going to just love to hear about your process, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your future work.
Thank you so much.